Of course, the lead wasn't until just a few years ago, so.
Are we good, Patty? Good? Okay. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Common Council meeting for February 26, 2019. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Nelson.
Here.
Wilson. Fernsler.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Present.
Gilson. Here. Sedlacek.
Present.
Hanson.
Present.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Next is the pledge. Please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. I would like to add that item 3B II will be pulled. There's no information for that this evening. Other than that, I see no corrections or changes. Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Gilson. Yes. Nelson.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, the audience portion, where we ask people to sign in and be recognized by the chair. This is where you do the talking and we do the listening. Tonight we have a couple people signed in. The first one is Richard York. Richard, you can either talk there or come up to the podium, whatever is comfortable.
My comments tonight are relative to item number 10, letter A, resolution number 3 on your agenda. I live on Hine Avenue, and I had been under the impression that when you do the work on our street later this year, that everything underneath it was going to be replaced and fixed. And I think the comments, the Plymouth Review quoted Brian Yurgis accordingly. I attended a meeting last week where I learned that's really not, in fact, the case, that the sewer laterals are only going to be replaced underneath the street if the individual homeowner chooses to pay for that to be done. There are counted today 24 houses on our street, and I believe that there are 4 of those homes that will, according to the plan as it currently is, that will be, the sewer laterals will be replaced. And I think the question that you guys are struggling with is who's going to pay for that. That means that there's another 20 laterals that are just simply on the discretion of the homeowner. Which means that I just did an estimate based on conversations I've had with some of my neighbors. If there are 8 of us that choose to pay to replace those laterals, with the 4 that you're going to be, that are requiring to be replaced, that would leave another 10 laterals that, another 12 laterals that are not likely to be replaced because the homeowner chooses not to pay for that to be done. Now, what's likely to happen is after the project is done, because the sewer pipes themselves, the main sewer main is weak, and that's why it needs to be replaced. In all likelihood, those laterals are also weak and are probably going to need to be replaced. Now, after the project is done, that's entirely on the cost of the homeowner. But what is likely to happen is over the next few years, maybe 10 years, that's going to mean 12 times that street is going to have to be broken into and dug up at the cost of the homeowner, but at the expense, not necessarily financial, well, long-term it will be financial expense of the community. That weakens the structure of the street, there's cracks or water gets down in there, and I've lived in this community 30 years, and one of my frustrations has been to see what's happened on Milwaukee Street. Of course, that's since been replaced, but on Western Avenue, on Eastern Avenue, is you replace the street and then 2 years later are digging down into it, and weakens the structure of the street, means that street is not going to last as long as it potentially could, which then does come back upon the city, the community, to pay for that. And what I guess I'm imploring you to do today is ensure one way or another that when our street is torn up, all the sewer laterals are taken care of, so that to the curb, so that in the future, in the immediate future, that doesn't have to be dug into again. It's very short-sighted of homeowners who will choose not to do that, because they very likely could, in a short period of time, be facing a bill that I've heard estimated as high as $10,000 to dig up the street. But it's short-sighted, I think, of the council to not do whatever needs to be done to see that that doesn't have to happen. Whether it's you mandate that the individual homeowners have to have it done at, I believe the cost that has been batted around is $750, or whether the city takes that on and says, just to make sure it happens, we'll pay for it. I understand what it's like. I serve on the school board. You got limited dollars and you're trying to stretch them as far as you can. I'm just saying, make sure it gets done one way or another, so that when you put a new lid on our street, by the end of July, I believe is the time frame, when that new lid is on there, we've got the assurance, you have the assurance that everything underneath there has been replaced and is not likely going to need to be replaced in the immediate future. So I guess that's my request, is if it means modifying the plan, if it means you guys figure out who's paying for it or when it's going to get paid for, just make sure it happens. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. York. Next person that signed up is Charlie Hanson. Charlie.
Good evening. I also reside on 127 Hine Avenue. My comments are a little different. I say, wow, what can I say? What an amazing person Clerk Patty Huberty is. She has been a dedicated person to the city of Plymouth for over 19 years. She has always been a professional in her work and the service to the city of Plymouth. She's worked on the city business, researching for answers, finding answers, and professionally and with respect, giving the answers to the questioner and or to the project in the correct detail. Personally, she has had an open door policy for me when I was in 2004 or 5, whatever it was, I came on the council. I could call her and ask her questions, and she answered those questions, and she did not, give her side of things. She just gave the answers as such, and it helped me gather the information I needed and gave me insight sometimes to help me make my decisions. So Patty, I want to thank you, Clerk Huberty, for helping me deal with my duties as a city alder person. On behalf of myself and the Plymouth City Council and the city of Plymouth, thank you. And good luck to you and Gary in your future endeavors. And you deserve a great retirement. I want to give you a round of applause on that. So.
Thank you, Charlie Hanson. Moving forward on the agenda, next item is item 5, public hearing followed by council discussion and action. I declare a public hearing open for ordinance number 3 and an ordinance repealing Chapter 6 of Title 15 and creating Chapter 1 of Title 16 regarding construction site erosion, and repealing Chapter 7 of Title 15 and creating Chapter 2 of Title 16 regarding post-construction stormwater management of the municipal code of the city of Plymouth. And I'll ask Administrator Yurgis to start off the discussion with the purpose of this ordinance.
Sure, the memo in the packet covers both ordinance number 3 and number 5 on the agenda tonight. At this time, I'll keep comments related to ordinance number 3. In any case, the city of Plymouth applied in 2017 for a grant to the DNR for stormwater management planning activities. That included the development or revision to the construction site erosion control ordinance and the post-construction stormwater ordinance. Both of those are ordinance sections we currently have. You would find those in the building code section of our code, even though underneath state statute, we really have authority for those areas underneath zoning. And instead, it's one of those items that kind of is building, but is also kind of zoning, and so what we've done is we've put them in their own section in the code. And so we're repealing the existing ordinances, adopting the new ordinances. McMahon and Associates, that was part of their grant activities to help us with the development of these ordinances. They did go to the Plan Commission for recommendation. The Public Works and Utilities Committee, I believe, if I remember correctly, also recommended adoption of the ordinances at the end of November of last year. And they basically update our code to make them consistent with DNR standards and to allow for local enforcement. And at this time, I would turn it back over to the mayor for the rest of the public hearing.
Thank you very much. As Administrator Yurgis said, that this has been brought forward under some additional study and coordination. The process updates things to more comply with code on a state basis, and I too would encourage to have ordinance number 3 adopted as presented. Do we have any other comments or questions regarding the public hearing? I declare a public hearing closed. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 3 as indicated.
Mayor,
Alder Nelson, Alder Sedlacek, both of you. You were probably quicker than my comment was.
okay. Mayor, I would like to move that we pass ordinance number 3 and ordinance repealing Chapter 6 of Title 15 and creating Chapter 1 of Title 16 and so on is written.
Second, Alderman Sedlacek.
Thank you very much. For the record, those are the two chairmen of the two committees that brought this forward and did a lot of due diligence on it. And it's thick for a reason. There's a lot of stuff in there, and we don't profess to know it, but it certainly gives us a lot more flexibility. Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please, on ordinance number 3.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Gilson.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Moving on to item 6, ordinance. Ordinance number 5, an ordinance repealing and recreating Title 9 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plymouth, Wisconsin regarding public utilities. I'll call on Administrator Yurgis once again for an explanation.
Sure. Again, this ordinance repeals the entire chapter and recreates it, or title, I should say. Just to note that in the past, even though it's a dormant utility, the telecommunications utility ordinance, it retains that ordinance. In the past, that was kind of pushed way back in the back of this section. That was brought forward to put as chapter 4, just behind the electric utility. But really nothing new there. There's no changes in activity there, just a matter of housekeeping. The major thing in this ordinance is related to the stormwater utility and establishing language for that. This does not set rates or set the credit policy. So what this does is authorizes the creation of the stormwater utility. This was also recommended by the Public Works and Utilities Committee. There would be additional discussions and review with the help of McMahon and Associates to look at how the rate would be established, and also any credit policies that would be developed. Kind of the three purposes for that is revenue diversification, anticipation of being regulated by the DNR for stormwater activities in the future, and then potential stormwater activities that may generate phosphorus credits or reductions for our wastewater treatment plant. So it's kind of the three reasons for why we're looking at that. So with that, that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. The chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
Motion to approve ordinance number 5.
Second, Hildebrand.
We have a first and a second to approve ordinance number 5 as indicated. Any other discussion or comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Gilson. Nelson.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Moving on to item 7, resolutions. Resolution number 6, a resolution authorizing a combined local government investment pool, LGIP, account for the city and utilities, and to transfer funds from the current utilities LGIP account to the combined account. Clerk Huberty, you want to give us a comment on that?
Yeah, it's, we each have an account. The city's account is not been used for quite some time. On the recommendation of Administrator Jurgis, he suggested we might as well just combine them into one account, because recently we have done the process to combine under one FEIN number. And that went into effect January 1. The utilities has a small balance, about $100 that they keep in there. We like to keep that option open, you know, if banking rates go south, you never know, or we need that availability of an account to use for something like a grant. A USDA grant was one of the things that we needed to have, where the money came into there and then it was transferred in and out. But I contacted the LGIP and they said, you know, we have to do this resolution for the council to authorize combining, and then they will transfer the utilities fund into, you know, a reactivated city account.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
Motion to approve resolution 6.
Second, Alder Gonzalez.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion or questions? I would probably ask the question, I think it's obvious, even though they're combined, they still maintain their separate account
There's
balances or
sub-accounts.
ledgers
Yeah.
within that. So it's just simply one account instead of two.
Right, they list, you designate sub-accounts.
Right,
And-
okay.
and that would
That's
be-
kind of assumed, but that's the way I would look at it.
Mr. Mayor, when we had done that banking RFP a number of years ago, and we combined, we left Wells Fargo on the utility side and we went to Bank First. As part of that arrangement, they agreed to pay, I think, 10 basis points above the local government investment pool for accounts that, or for monies we keep with them. So that's why we haven't used local government. And then on the utility side, we also transition money to the American Deposit Management, because LGIP, you remember, the rates were almost zero, and we transitioned to ADM for yield purposes. And the reason there's $100 in there is because after we took the money out, some interest came in, and there's like $100. Well, to wire it out is $15, and so we're not gonna pay $15 to get 100 out. So at some point, we'll reuse that account, and we wanna keep that option open for the city and the utilities, go down to one account, and as Clerk Huberty said very correctly, is that there's sub-accounts for different activities that can be segregated.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Fernsler?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Gilson?
Motion carried, thank you. Item 7B, resolution number 4, a resolution of commendation for City Clerk Treasurer Patricia Huberty. Normally, I, at this point, request the clerk to read the resolution because she is so cotton-picking good at it. So tonight, I guess, I will try to do my best to keep up to your standards. So with that, resolution number 4 of 2019, a resolution of commendation for City Clerk Treasurer Patricia Huberty. Whereas Patricia Huberty has faithfully served the City of Plymouth for 19 years and 2 months, 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 3 seconds. I had to add that. Since December 27th, 1999, upon the Common Council approving her hiring as administrative assistant. And whereas Patricia was promoted to the city clerk treasurer position in 2003 to the present. And whereas Patricia attended and completed the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Institute and Treasurer's Completion Course through the University of Wisconsin Green Bay Office of Outreach and Extension Governmental Affairs. That is one long abbreviated title, let me tell you. And whereas Patricia was recognized as a certified clerk by the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association in 2007. Whereas Patricia's contribution to the municipal government is an indication of her pride of our state and in our community. And whereas it is fitting and right that the City of Plymouth recognize Patricia for her 19 years, 2 months of service to this community upon her retirement on February 28th, 2019. Now therefore, be it resolved that the mayor, the common council, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Plymouth, extend to Patricia Huberty their deepest and appreciative and gratitude for her dedication and service to the City of Plymouth, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to her and also be spread upon the minutes of this meeting. And furthermore, be it resolved that a brick be placed in Patricia's name in the Pocket Park on the northeast corner of Mill and Caroline Street under the decorative brick Wall of Fame recognition program for employees and city officials. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution as read. Alderman, Council President Hanson.
I move the passage of resolution number 4. Regrettably that she's leaving, but definitely deserving of this
Thank you.
resolution.
Second, Alderman Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion, comments, criticisms? I'll start it off. It's my job to criticize once in a while. And I will admit that on TV 14, it was a vicious rumor, but I'll admit I did call Clerk Huberty a drill sergeant, in fun, of course, because she has ruled the roost here and has guided all of us, as Council President Hanson said, sometimes with more guidance than we asked for, because that's her style. And We all know her well. I was her neighbor for a while, and all I can say is, we will miss you. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And we have, as indicated, a copy of the proclamation with the city seal. And then, of course, we have to do something a little more official, and we want to present you with the plaque for all time's sake, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm a
Oh,
little,
wait, did we vote on that?
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
I got the pen.
oh, maybe you want
Just
this
hold
back?
Hold on. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now you can do it. Okay, it's
Thank you.
official.
Well, I'm a little better at reading and writing than I am at speaking. That's a clerk's job, is to do the reading and the writing, so, but Mayor, I promise to keep this under 3 minutes. So.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Common Council, for this very special honor tonight. I like to use a quote from the late Terry Kohler, which was stated at the end of his obituary when he passed in 2016. I try to live my life faithfully, quietly doing the job the Lord has assigned me. That's pretty much sums up my drive and dedication. It has really been a privilege to serve this great community and also to be part of creating its history. That's one of the things I found most interesting. Since I started in 1999, I've worked with 2 mayors, Mayor Kiley and Mayor Coleman. But I have seen 34 alderpersons come and go, and a city administrator added to our staff. Our population has grown from 7,600 to 8,600. We've added 8 miles of roads Kathy has to take care of. Our assessed value has increased from 362 million to 618 million. So in those 19 years, there's been numerous projects and new policies and so many changes, too many to mention here tonight. But I can look back and clearly say that all have moved us forward to being a more vibrant and progressive city. Clearly a lot to be proud of here, definitely. And I have worked with so many amazing people, dedicated employees, all doing their best to make Plymouth a great place to live, to work, to raise a family, to run a business, and especially to retire. I am so looking forward to that. So thank you again for the privilege of serving with you and for being part of the cheese capital of the world. So thank you very much.
Very, very well said. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Moving on to item 8, no items were removed from the consent agenda. Moving on to item 9, committee reports and actions. Public Works and Utility Committee recommendation from February 12, 2019 meeting, approve resolution number 2 of 2019 amending sewer usage rates for holding tank and septic tank waste and incorporating such rates into the official sewage rate schedule for Plymouth Utilities. And I'll ask Administrator Yergis for an opening comment on that.
There's a memo from Director Austin as well as myself, and then this was recommended from the Public Works and Utilities Committee. Basically, a number of years ago, we started accepting septic waste and holding tank waste at our wastewater treatment plant. At times, I don't want to say we've become a dumping ground, but at times we're getting things that are maybe a little bit more difficult on our equipment. and we also don't want to be the dumping grounds in Sheboygan County. We'll still accept it to help, areas around Plymouth take this waste, but we don't want to become the dumping ground. And so one discussion item was to review our rates compared to other community rates. And after looking at that, looking at Kiel and Random Lake and Sheboygan, Campbellsport, New Holstein, it was decided that we would recommend increasing the holding tank rate from $8 per 1,000 gallons to $10 per 1,000 gallons. And then septic tank rates from $40 to $45 per 1,000 gallons. In the original resolution, when we established this program, the wastewater superintendent has authority to reject these deliveries if they determine that the waste is not beneficial to our plant or causes issues, so he retains that authority. But we would be looking to adjust the rates a little bit, and partly to make sure that we don't become the dumping ground and receive everything throughout the county. And so that's the purpose of the resolution, and that was recommended from the Public Works and Utilities Committee on February 12th.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion from Utility Chairman Kozlacek
Motion
on
to
resolution number 2 of 2019.
Motion to approve resolution number 2.
Second, Alder Nelson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10, old business, resolution number 3, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Plymouth, amending the effective date of resolution number 23 of 2018 regarding amending Plymouth Utilities sewer utility rates and regulations to establish a reconnection hookup fee for sanitary sewer service laterals. Resolution passed by council February 12, 2019, followed by the mayoral veto dated February 14, 2019, per section 2-2-3 paren C. A two-thirds vote of all members of the council shall be necessary to make the act effective. I'll ask Clerk Huberty for any comments, and then the chair will entertain a motion.
I'm just doing procedural recommendation, bringing it back to the council after receiving the mayoral veto,
Correct.
listing what's required as far as a vote again
Correct.
this evening.
Thank you. City Attorney Fever, do you want to make any comments before we entertain a motion?
Yes, Mayor, just to clarify, so we're looking at a two-third vote of all members. We do have 7 members of the council tonight. We will need 6 of the 7 voting in favor of overturning the mayoral veto for it to be overturned.
Thank you. With that, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to override the mayor's veto.
I'll second, Alder Nelson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Hanson.
I yield if the persons that moved in second motion want to state something first, but if they don't, I can state a few things. I'm in favor of overriding this veto. I've done some research with other utilities and other communities. I have been in contact with Sheboygan Falls. Sheboygan Falls helps pay for and require the under the street laterals to be replaced, and they do some type of financing for that. I don't have the exact amount what that is, but they do that. I was in contact with Sparta, Wisconsin, who has 9,667 persons, and the utility pays for the under street sewer replacement. So then I was in contact with Wapaka, Wisconsin, has 6,018 persons in the city, and the utility pays under the street replacement for the laterals. Then I was in contact with Waupun, Wisconsin. Waupun, Wisconsin, they pay for under the streets, but they also own the laterals under the street. So they have something different. I don't know of too many communities that do that, but Waupun was one of those areas. Then I was in contact with River Falls, and they have a new person on the job, and he didn't have records. They haven't had a new project for 5 years. So I don't have information about how they handle that particular situation. So, I'm recommending to vote in favor of appealing or to vote down the mayor's, what do you call it here? His
Veto.
Veto, thank you, on this.
Any other comments? Clerk,
I
call.
do have a few more comments, if I could. I just
You
was
may-
going to give a chance to
You
other.
may continue.
Thank you, Mayor. In December, I had our Director Austin do some checking on streets in the city of Plymouth that had projects done. And the short of the thing comes down to there were really not many records for, and you have a sheet in front of you that kind of tells about that particular. I had City Administrator Jurgis bring this out to you. If you take a look at North Milwaukee, they had 74 residents, but there wasn't any indication of under-street replacements. Then the Caroline Street, that was basically the water line, so they didn't have any information about the sewer. Then if you take on Western Avenue, they didn't have any information on the sewer lines. Then if you take a look at Western Avenue, there was not really any information kept about how the sewer lines were paid for. Then if you take a look underneath the Reed Street had 28 sewer lines replaced under the road, and the paying for that was paid for by the project itself. It was not charged to the individual residents. So one of the concerns I have, if this resolution is not, veto is not overturned, we've set a precedence that if we do something in the future, how do we change that particular aspect of it? So that's why I'm urging all of you to continue your vote as you did last time, to be in favor of this ordinance and override the mayor's veto.
Any other comments? I maybe would ask Administrator Jurgis to verify the fact that the veto is for the delay of the implementation until 2020, January 1st, 2020, instead of it being implemented immediately. Is that correct?
Yes.
With that, any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Sizlacek.
I'm going to vote to override the veto, not because necessarily that the start date, so much as we had a number of meetings about all of these things, and through some discussion, it seems to me that we have some changed minds, I think, about some of the ways that we were going to go forward. And I think that we're going to have to go back to that, not necessarily start over, but to look at some of the different ways that we can move forward with how we work with the residents. And as Mr. York spoke earlier, that by replacing all of the sewer laterals at this time can save the city in the long term some money, and really it would save those residents money for the long term because of the cost that it would be to, if there becomes an issue with their sewer lateral, the cost for having to have that work done is extremely expensive and much more expensive than having it done at this point in time. So that's kind of where I am with this.
Any other comments? Alderman Nelson?
Well, it's been kind of a difficult issue to really decide on for me. You know, I've tossed it around. I can see both sides, but at the same time, you know, I looked at Reed Street and how that was done, and maybe we should have taken a step back at that time and said, well, if it's going to be done, then the residents should pay for it. Well, they didn't have to pay for it. So then you go to Hind Street, I suppose you have to have a starting point somewhere, but it's just been very difficult for me to decide. I'm probably going to vote to override the veto. I hope nobody feels like I'm taking sides or anything. It's just that I think we need to get our ducks in a row before we charge anybody $750 per family to get this done.
Any other comments?
I guess one last thing that I would like to say is just that at the previous meeting, this motion passed unanimously. So at that point in time, all people were, except for me, as I wasn't here, but those that were here, everyone had voted to change the start date to 2021.
2020.
2020, yes, you're right.
Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yep, abstain. Abstain.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Gilson.
No.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
What's our tally, Clerk Huberty?
5 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstain.
I would ask for a ruling of the chair for Attorney Faber. How are the yeses, nos, and abstentions counted in this case?
Well, and if an abstention is due to a conflict of interest, we don't count that abstention with the majority. And so, in this case, as Alder Hanson had mentioned, he's on Hine Avenue. He's chosen to abstain from this vote tonight. We have 5 yeses, 1 no, and so the mayoral veto is not overridden.
Thank you all for your comments and thoughts and considerations. Thank you, Attorney Faber, for the explanation. Moving on to item 11, approve writing off the balance of $2,997 from the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad invoice dated February 27th, 2018. Clerk Huber, do you want to give us a comment on that, please?
The council did discuss this issue, I believe, in a closed, was that a closed session, or we talked about it a while back. We sent the Wisconsin Southern Railroad a bill for a little over almost $6,000 for additional invoices that were discovered after we sent them the original billing for things related to the Elizabeth Street, or Milwaukee Street closing, I should say. And Administrator Yorgis is gone. He can probably explain it better, but he has gone through a lot of steps trying to get this taken care of, and they came back with an offer to pay half of it, or they sent us a check for that, and we've still tried to take different steps. Administrator Yorgis has taken many steps trying to get them to pay that, but it's obvious that they are not going to at this point, so we need to write it off of our books to to clear the books, to clear the debt, as it looks like it is fruitless to continue to pursue it.
Thank you.
Administrator Yurgis has anything else to?
The chair will entertain a motion.
So move, Alder Nelson, to approve writing off the balance of the $2,997 from the Wisconsin Southern Railroad invoice.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Nelson?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
Fernsler? Gonzalez?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Gilson?
Yes.
Sedlacek?
Motion carried, thank you. Item 11, new business. Approve original application for a Class B beer license for the Hub Studio Cafe LLC, Susan R. Radke, agent. This has been approved by the clerk's office and the police department. Because it's an original, we must act upon it, and the chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve Class B license.
Second, Alderman Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Hildebrand.
Yeah, can I ask that some of these agents appear before us while we're handing out these licenses? Or is it something that has to be done?
We haven't
Yeah,
requested
front of
that,
us.
we haven't requested that in the past. They currently, at the Hub Studio Cafe currently has a wine license. We've approved a wine license for them in the past. Susan Radke is the owner, well, I don't know if the owner of the business, not the building, but she leases the building, but she is the owner of the business. She is the agent also for the wine license that she currently holds. They want to add beer into their restaurant.
It's not a recommendation then, or something?
We haven't done it in the
It's
past.
not a requirement that they
No,
appear,
and I don't know of a
as long as
requirement
they
that
fill out
that's
the
done.
paperwork.
Yeah, the police department does do a background check on them for any violations. Yeah, that is one thing that is required, so that has been done.
All right.
Okay. We certainly can do that if you want to.
Well, just
in
a
the future.
little more responsibility in front of us.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
there's-
collecting
Right,
some of the holy grails of Plymouth, you
Yeah.
know, the beer liquor license.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 11B, approve the issuance of credit cards for the police chief, deputy police chief, city clerk, treasurer, and fire chief. Administrator Yurgis, you want to give us a quick summary on that, please?
Sure, in your packet, there's a memo, and back in 2015, we approved the credit card program for Plymouth Utilities for a number of staff positions. And then we said, eventually after that had been in place for a while, we'd bring it back to the council for looking at approving it for employees in the general fund or the city. And it's already been 4 years basically since that was approved. And we had a request from the police department to look at issuing credit cards, and that refreshed my memory on the topic. And so I placed the item on the agenda for the police chief, the deputy police chief, and then clerk treasurer, that'd be Sabrina, and then Dennis as the fire chief. And this is underneath our state credit card program, and it's so that people don't have to use personal credit cards for city business on the city side. We eliminated that on the utility side for the most part.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
I move to approve the issuance of credit cards to the following classifications: police chief, deputy police chief, city clerk treasurer, and fire chief.
Second, Alder Gonzalez.
We have a second. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item C, approve vacation schedules for new hires. Administrator Yurgis, you want to give us a summary on that, please?
In over the last 18 months to 2 years, it seems like we've been doing a lot more hiring with retirements and other things. And, we have thankfully successfully recruited from other municipalities for a number of positions. But what has come up routinely is vacation schedules. And at times I have the ability to approve a vacation schedule for a new hire, depending on what their experience is, different from the base level in our vacation schedule plan. But what the proposal is that we talked about in committee is that if you are hired before July 1st, an employee would receive 1 week of vacation to be used during the hire year, and then 2 weeks the following January. If hired on or after July 1st, for the first 6 months, they would have 0 vacation, and then the next January, they would get their 2 weeks for the remainder of that year. And that just gives a little bit more flexibility when we hire people. It seems like candidates expect to have some sort of vacation benefit when they're hired. And, we have found that our current policy just hasn't been conducive when recruiting for positions. And again, this only really changes the schedule for new hires. This has nothing to do with existing employees, really. We do have one employee that this would apply to that we hired in January. But when did Bobby?
I think it started in February.
Okay, Bobby started in the Public Works Department, started in February. So we kind of say, we'll give you the vacation as authorized underneath this new plan. But other than that, there are no other active employees that would be impacted. But again, just trying to have more flexibility and a little bit better of a benefit when we recruit to fill positions.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I would like to move that we approve the vacation schedule for new hires as stated.
Second, Alderman Sabacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion, questions? Alderman Nelson.
Well, I just think this fits better with what happens in the private sector and elsewhere. People would expect some vacation their first year. This is not overly generous in my view, so that's why I'd like it to move through, be approved.
Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item D, approve electric transmission line easement with American Transmission Company LLC for the substation number 2 project. Administrator Jurgis, please.
I think in your packet, the map figure is probably the best to refer to. But there's an existing transmission line, the 138 kV line, that I guess is the most prominent from PP is kind of the line that goes out in front of Masters Gallery. And that's an existing line. And as you know, we're taking the transformer out of service at sub number 2, which is the wastewater treatment plant substation, and replacing it with a large transformer, and that should arrive this spring. But what's going to happen is that facility will be served off of a 138 kV line that'll come from the back of the substation, and it's really this easement here that we're talking about where there's 4 monopole structures, and it's a short little span that'll connect into our substation, and that's the purpose of the easement, and it supports our substation project.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
Motion to approve the transmission line easement.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Hildebrand.
Is that the same line they're going to all mono poles now, or this summer they're studying that?
I'm not sure. If it's the same line, because that line is going towards
I'm not
the
sh-
substation
yeah, I'm
in
not
South
sure.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm
I
not,
don't know what
I
they're
think,
doing, if they're doing any modifications on that line.
yeah.
Any other questions? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Gonzalez, Gilson,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item E, approve appointment of Sabrina Dittman as clerk treasurer effective March 1st, 2019. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the appointment of Sabrina Dittman as clerk treasurer effective March 1st, 2019.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? This is your last chance. We have a dartboard in the other room. We want to make you feel welcome. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Item 12. The chair hereby entertains a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 per N1 per NG, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved regarding claim from Miller and Bolt Incorporated.